Welcome, Supers, back to another Shark Tank Tank Tales. I am honored to get to bring to you another Shark Tank entrepreneur, super entrepreneur, here in this episode of Tank Tales. Today, we have the founder or co-founder. I'm not positive on what
Founder,
was
founder.
it founder. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was you and your wife. Founder of Tenikle, which if you haven't watched the pitch yet, I will link it at the end of as well as below in the description for you to go watch the pitch and with my reaction, of course. And you should totally go do that. But in the meantime, I need you to give some super claps wherever you are right now, driving the car, running around, doing your marathon training. If you're sitting on the toilet, just start getting loud. I need some super claps right now for Super Hans Dose. Woo! Welcome.
Woo! That's
Welcome, Super
me.
Hans. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I am wonderful. I'm happy to have you here. Actually a unseasonably warm day here in Philadelphia. It was up to like 60 degrees outside, and everything's looking up. I mean, including the
Good.
temperature of the world. That's not so
Yeah,
good. But
it's hot here too. I'm still in Menifee. It's starting to roast. So normally it's not that hot this time of year, but it's starting to get there.
yeah, well, what February? So when's when like March is like spring for them?
Yeah, March starts getting a little warmer, but it's roasting today. I think we're at like 85. We're getting up there, so it's starting to get
Wow.
hot. Yeah.
That is tough. And you were coming from the infamous trailer, or not trailer,
Yep.
RV,
The
I should
RV,
say.
baby. You got to keep those expenses
Yeah.
low.
Ding,
Sacrifices.
ding, ding,
We call it.
ding,
We
ding
call
for that.
it. Yeah, man. So it's been a wild ride. Going into this business, I didn't think I would have to make those kind of sacrifices, but you got to do what you got to do to make things work, and here we are. So, not going to be
It's
in here much longer. We're going on 8 months, but we are looking for a new place finally. So we're happy about that. Yeah.
that is awesome. My bell is not working for some reason. I don't know why,
Not
but
cooperating.
are you able to hear? Do you hear it?
I hear the bell. Yeah.
You hear the bell? Okay, weird. I don't know why it's supposed to be doing double dings and it's like it's not working right. Anyway, um, so so let's see. So when it comes to Shark Tank, did you seek out to get onto Shark Tank, or did Shark Tank seek you out?
So actually, Shark Tanks was seeking us out in 2018. I want to believe. I think it was 2018. Yeah, we got a message in 2018. Hey, you guys should sign up. But it was at the very end of the season, and it was like 2 days left to submit. And Lydia, my wife, and I just threw together some video real quick just to get something. And we didn't end up getting that one. And then we kind of held off for a bit. And then just this last year, it was like, okay, it's time. Like the product is perfect. Everything's in the right spot. Let's get on and do it. And so I submitted a lot earlier this time around, and then all of a sudden the business started having some shaky footing, and we'll get into that obviously in a minute here. But yeah, it was a process, definitely going through the process with the producers to get on. I think they had over 40,000 applicants this year, so it's crazy. It's crazy to even get as far as I did, let alone airing, let alone as good as it went. So pretty wild.
It is wild. I mean, the amount of people could fill a stadium, right? Like a baseball stadium at 40,000 people. That for the amount of people that go to, get to try to be on the show, and then to whittle
Mm-hmm.
it down to like 150 ish pitches is tough, right? Because it's probably a little bit more than that because not everybody that films get aired
Right.
and et cetera. So it's probably more like 160 to 180 total. But at the same time, like to be able to get through is absolutely awesome. So when did you found Tentacle?
It was, well, technically 2015 is when I started working on it. And it was kind of like a fun project that I was doing on the side. I was working at Hurley, I was at a cush job. I had no intention of like going off just yet. And then, Lydia started really pushing me like, hey, you should get your idea really off the ground and do something. Like, it's time to launch a Kickstarter or do something. I'm like, you know what? You're right. So did that, launched a Kickstarter. I mean, that alone is its own huge process. Uh, and did phenomenally well on Kickstarter. I think our goal was like 30,000. Ended up doing between Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and pre-sale on our website. On the site, we did about 172 grand, I think, between all three of them.
Woo!
So it was like, oh wow, so people want this product, great. And then after Kickstarter ended, it was a mad rush to try and get everything in time for the holidays. I think the Kickstarter started in late August and ran for 2 months. Um, and I said in the Kickstarter, we're going to try and get this out before the holidays. And I know how some Kickstarters go; they don't deliver on their promises. So it was super important that we delivered, and we did. And it was insane, down to like the last couple of days getting everything out. And that was a wild, wild, crazy period, but it worked out. And then those Kickstarter backers, once we started getting their feedback on the product and changing the product, making it better and better and better as we've gone along this entire process, we've always incentivized them. Hey, you are our first backers. Get this fat discount because you really helped us. And then so now here we are on the 4th generation of the product, and however many years later, I guess 3 or 4 years later, yeah.
Well, it's hard. It's hard, right, with the COVID, or I'm sorry, the illness time warp that we've been living in.
Yeah, it kind of took a chunk out of normal operations, definitely, and it hit us pretty hard as far as because supply chain. It was supply chain messed up my cash flow, messed up a lot of things, and ultimately it was COVID that was the culprit of what so many people have faced and different levels. Most people think that just restaurants and those types of businesses have been affected, but you got to think about the supply chain, and even now that we're seeing all this stuff, even still today, supply chain problems, and some businesses just didn't get it to work the way that they needed it to, and I think we were kind of one of those. So.
Yeah, I mean it is tough, because the supply, quote unquote supply chain is really just other businesses that are trying to operate and not have everybody get sick. As like even evident, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a Walmart shut down here, not too far from where I live, and because everybody got sick. Like it wasn't like out of precautions. It was just like, well, everybody got sick and now it's closed. And it's like, well, we don't want that to happen everywhere. Even if it's just a cold, like you still don't want everybody coming to work sick like that.
Exactly. And a lot of it was precaution on the manufacturer's front, but even our direct contacts over at our manufacturer started getting sick too, and it was a scary time. But I mean, so many people have been affected by it. It's been rough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I didn't. What I just said was not trying to diminish the to being a cold, but for some people it is, and some people it isn't. And again, if it is, like, that's enough to not have people not come to work. Like, you get enough of those people, you literally can't open the doors. And it's not just the small businesses, it's also the Walmarts of the world that have to contend with these types of problems. So when you think about supply chain, think about and the ladies at the docks, right? At the manufacturer, at the people making the materials so the manufacturers can manufacture. Like, there's so many the truck drivers to deliver those raw materials. Like, there's so many moving pieces. It's not just the like when people talk about the economy, or I don't know if are you a South Park fan, Hans?
A little bit. I watched a little bit.
Like, there was that episode where they talked about the economy. It's like, well, how does the economy work? And they're like, well, we don't really know. And like, it's the economy is mad with us, and so we need to, it's just a great episode. If anybody hasn't watched that episode specifically, like, you might not be a South Park fan, but that episode it just epitomizes how crazy the economy is back in 2012. So many moving parts.
Yeah, just think of on every business how many people are directly involved in a good or service being delivered to a customer. Like you said, from raw materials, someone's got to make the, extract the raw material. Someone has to process it. Someone has to truck it, and then put it, the mold tooler, and then putting that together, and manager. It's insane how many people are involved in the process. You don't think of that as much if you just think of, oh, company gives me product, but there's so many hands it goes through. So, yeah.
100%. And the more complicated the product, the more companies that are involved, the more people that are involved, like cars, right? It's not just like, ooh, Toyota put the car together. Like, there's a lot of companies
Yeah.
involved to get the parts to to get the materials to be able to make the parts to send it to a Toyota to be able to put it together
Yep.
and then be able to deliver it and all the delivery and plate machine. But
It's wild.
um, so you get the good news that maybe you're going to get through and go on to be on Shark Tank, right? Because I know it's not like
Hmm.
they don't rubber stamp definitive like you're going in, but
Yep.
is that walk me through the process that you were like, okay, I gotta start thinking about pitch, I gotta start thinking about valuation, I gotta think about the numbers and maybe the story about how we got to this position, and or will that story maybe matter by the time I actually get to Shark Tank, and or by the time Shark Tank actually airs? Because like to
Right.
me, that could be literally like a year difference, which everyone
It
knows
can,
one
yeah.
month can make a difference when it comes to your business.
Right. I think so. My process going into it was just be raw, be yourself. Just you don't need to make a story. You don't need to, wherever you're at is where you're at. And when I got the call that, hey, we've processed you, the producers want to move forward with getting to know you more and potentially, you being in the tank. Um, Once I got that, we were still living in Dana Point at that time. So things were still pretty good and things were moving great. And then all of a sudden, um, as you said, a month can go by, something can change, and all of a sudden it was, oh wow, like things are not going as great as they just were, and we need to make some adjustments here, some sacrifices to make this work and put all in on this Shark Tank thing. So because I just knew it, just airing alone, whether I got a deal or not, it's going to help your business. So I thought this is an opportunity that you can't just let slip up. So my process was all in, just everything on every call. Just be yourself, be on point on knowing your numbers, and obviously there's quite a process in making sure that you're giving accurate numbers and all that stuff too. So
Mm.
it was fight or flight, and we just went full fight on it, and that's what we had to do. But my wife is just an incredible support. She's like, "Yeah, you got this. You just make it happen. Get as far as you can. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. But just put all in." And so, I guess to answer your question on, how is that preparation? In some sense, it was a lot more of like you can do it. It was a mental game. Like you got this. You just have a good attitude and have fun with the producers, and hopefully something good will come out of it. And that was really how I went about it.
So yeah, I mean, look, there cannot be understated having support as an entrepreneur, as a super entrepreneur. Having that support it can be everything because
Oh,
we live in a
1,000%. Yeah.
super like if we don't know and embrace ourselves around a whole bunch of other entrepreneurs, there's a good chance the person watching this right now might be the only person that that's trying to pursue something that might sound kind of crazy, to
Yep.
some people. And just because you haven't connected with the other people, maybe in the super community, super entrepreneur community or somewhere else online, you feel isolated, and having that support. I mean, I know from
Totally.
firsthand, having my wife support everything that I've done over the last many of years now, is been it's life changing. It's like
Yeah.
it's completely game changing.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all you really have, because I mean, I'm the only one of my friends that went off and did something crazy like this. And they all have great careers doing their thing, but it's not in the entrepreneur world. And so having my wife to be so incredibly like that person to fall back on is, I mean, it's insane. You just need that. Yeah, she's been great.
No, I love that. One question I didn't ask was, were you a big Shark Tank fan previous to wanting to go on the show? I assume
Yes.
you were, since you said you
Yeah,
applied.
I definitely was. I will. disclose that sometimes it hit too close to home, and I would have so much anxiety watching the show because it just hits so close to home. You're like, I feel for them, or how's it going to be if I ever get to that? Because it was always like in my head, I don't know if I manifested it or whatever, but it was always in my head like one day I'm going to do that. Like I just always kind of thought that. So all the past seasons, since 2015 when I started working on this thing, just watching a lot of them. Sometimes I would like get so stressed out I'd have to turn it off. It was like, oh god, this is like so real. And even leading up to me going on, I found that if I was watching the show, it was putting too much noise in my head of how I should react to things and do that. And I found at one point, a few months before, while going in this process, I told myself, okay, stop watching the show. It's not going to help you at this point. It's actually going to stress you out a lot. And just focus on what you need to focus on. Like, your business. Everything's going to be different for yours, as every episode is different. Don't be worried about what they say about someone else's business and how they reacted in certain ways. And I felt like, in a sense, I needed to just put myself on my own Shark Tank island and just like, let me focus on how I'm going to do it. So, yeah, definitely a fan though.
Well, that's a really great insight there. That because you also, you have to keep in mind, and most people that are going on the show, I would think at least, or at least watch this show, know that you're not out there for the 8 minutes that your final, pitch airs as, right?
Yep.
You're there for 45 minutes. I've heard as long as like an hour and a half or longer, even a little longer.
About an hour and a half for me. Yeah.
Wow. So that's so when you're watching the highlight reel or the low light reel in some cases, unfortunately, of other people, it's like, taking bits and pieces of it helps, but as you point out, maybe to a point, because just because you don't get to see everything, you don't know everything about that person's business, what they're portraying in the show. There's a lot of things that are probably said. An hour and a half is a long time to talk to five other people about it that you're not hearing. So like their reaction might not be to the thing that the producers enabled it because they needed to tell the story of that pitch, right? Like I always say, when they have world-class editors, you start with the end. At least the way I would do it as an editor, I would start with what's the final product, what happens at the end, and then work backwards from there to tell the story to get you to the end. Because everything else is just noise, right? So it's if it doesn't help tell the story, it's got to go.
Right.
So yeah,
that's actually the attitude. I definitely had that attitude, knowing that I'm here to make good TV. If you make really good TV that's engaging, and you have the moments that are going to be really engaging, it's gonna. If the worst case scenario is that it's gonna help sell your product because it'll be engaging enough that this 9-minute infomercial that you have a shot at sharing your product to the world, just make good TV. And I think that was really. So much came out of it, but like you said, they have to build the story. The producers themselves, they're not involved in the rest of the process. All they care about is making a really good episode. And if you give them that, and you deliver on good stuff, then you have a better shot.
And we're gonna get to tease that. We're gonna get to that.
Okay, really I got a little
ahead
part. Of it. Yeah,
yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there because I didn't get to watch the whole thing again prior to, but I did flick through a little bit towards the end to make sure. Because as people that watch the show know, I do have notes. Like it looks like a
wow, yeah, look
notebook.
At those.
But yeah, so each pitch is one of the lines is in between the lines. So
cool.
So yeah, so I do have notes. It's just I don't get to write everything, so I can't go back and like specifically pinpoint everything that happens. So I do try to watch at least a little bit, and I did watch up to the end because I couldn't recall exactly how everything towards the end went, but I did remember the beginning. Right. So okay, so you're working on your pitch, right? And you're trying to put together like, what parts do I leave in? What parts do I leave out? Do you, man, maybe this is, well, I'll save that part for when we get into the tank. But, putting your pitch together, what's some of the tips that you could give somebody who's working on putting together a pitch for their own business from your experience?
I think, yeah. For me, the inspiration was actually the Flex Seal guy. Like that's the most phenomenal. Like all the Flex products, Flex Seal. It's the most phenomenal pitch ever. It's boisterous, loud, crazy. Like this guy's in a boat made of the product. It's those kind of things I think that are really engaging, and just having that energy. I think there's a lot of great business ideas out there, but if you think about what your goal is on the show, is it to sell your product? Is it to get a deal? I think ultimately it was be loud, be fun, be crazy, be yourself. That was my approach. Even the octopus, I don't know if you remember, I walked out
Yep.
in these fins, which you can see behind me. I still have them. I walked out in those fins and the octopus suit to just look ridiculous. I just thought, like, you know what? I'm not that cool of a person. Just don't try to be anybody. Just have fun. And worst case scenario, you get a lot of attention, and maybe it helps sell your product. But for me, it was have don't take myself seriously. Be loud, be boisterous, and show off the capability of the product. So in writing the pitch, I mean, there's a couple things in there, like the pickle holder. That was a little joke, like, and it could be a pickle holder, and I take a bite of the pickle. It's just it's another like capturing, engaging second, like to keep it engaging and keep it fun and keep it light, but also show the functionality of the product. Like, okay, no, you're not going to use it as a pickle holder, but here's how cool this product is. You can use it in so many different ways. So trying to use the benefits of the product in a funny way and kind of an interesting way that was kind of, you know, more engaging is really what I tried to do.
So, okay. So let me speak for the entire super entrepreneur community. And more importantly, and probably actually most importantly, your wife. Stop selling yourself short, Hans. You are cool. You are cool,
Oh.
right? So seriously.
You.
Yeah, no, stop. Because full stop. Like, because that, you came up with something that was what lit you up about not only your product, right? And coming up with way outside the box thinking, which is cool in of itself, but to have the I don't know not the nice way to say this, but to have the confidence. That's the correct, the politically correct way to say this.
Yeah,
To have the confidence to walk out there and be silly and know that, probably without even maybe realizing it, you were speaking to your audience there by doing those silly things. Because I mean, I remember seeing your product on Kickstarter, and I was like, this is really cool, but I don't know. I went back and forth, and eventually I passed up on it when I think it was what, like $30 in the Kickstarter or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was.
I just at the time I didn't feel like I was going to get enough use out of it. I had the Joby Pod,
Right.
and I was like, all right, I spent that, and then the Joby Pod's annoying because that like wears out like nobody's business. So just if you just use it for even just like a month, like I feel like after a month you pretty much have to get a new one if you actively use the thing. But no, you owned what you were able to bring to the table, and to look at it from a producer standpoint of like, how do I make it so that I actually get aired and not just get pushed off to the side and actually have a moment. And we're gonna get to that very big moment that happened. In a little bit here, because you gotta tease, right? You gotta always be teasing.
Gotta tickle the audience with it.
but seriously, Hans, stop selling yourself short. You did awesome, and you were true to yourself.
Thanks.
And I think you spoke to the people who actually are your customer base, maybe without even intentionally meaning to.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that when I say don't take, like, I'm not that cool, don't take yourself so seriously, and a lot of that to me just means that a lot of it was for myself. Like, don't be worried about what they think of you, and don't be worried about what happens. Like, just if you're okay with who you are, it's like just being an absolute goofball, then who cares? It's that was sort of my mental way to kind of get through a very intense, like, it's a very intense thing to go through, standing up there in front of the sharks in the tank. It's incredibly intense. And so I think because I wasn't worried about how I looked, maybe that is kind of what translated. And definitely our customer base is a fun customer base, so it was important, I guess, to keep it light and keep it fun. And yeah, so I appreciate that. That's super kind. Thank you.
Tell your wife's name is Lydia, right? Tell Lydia I said you're
Lydia.
welcome. Lydia, yes, Super
Yeah,
Lydia, you're welcome.
super
We'll keep
Lydia.
get him in check. So I always feel I always feel the same way when and I've told my wife this and she's like, no way, no way that you feel like nervous when you go and I give talks, right? And the
Uh-huh.
reason is, and in your case, and anybody who's pitching's case, is you've prepared your pitch in a particular way. You have a
Mm-hmm.
slideshow, you have the props, you have the whatever you're utilizing to tell the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially with a slideshow, once you're out there in front of people, you don't know if the jokes are going to land. You don't
Yeah.
know if, the gifs or gifs that I've used to convey a story are going to land
Yep.
with that particular audience necessarily. You hope, you
Yeah.
try to, you spend hours, crafting it, but you still don't know. And it's unlike being able to just talk off the top of your head. Once you have committed to, like, I'm walking out here with some flip-flops, or not flip-flops, flippers, and
Yeah.
the was it the squid, was it squid or
The big
octopus,
octopus floaty. Yeah. Yep.
octopus floaty? Yeah, I always get those two mixed up. You've committed at that point. And I know
Oh
me,
yeah.
I would be nervous, not because I'm not confident in myself and what I'm bringing to the table, but just that if I walk out there and it falls flat, we're in for
Oh,
we're in
oh,
for a
yeah.
long, like, 45 minute, 45-minute
You're,
plus time
yeah.
here.
Yeah. It definitely is kind of nerve wracking to think, and then you have to nail it. You don't get a second shot to do it again. They say, you get one shot at this. If you mess up, just keep going. It doesn't matter. You just have to keep going, and that alone is nerve wracking. Like, I need to memorize this thing like crazy. I was doing pitches in front of my family. I had my whole family out in their chairs and outside, and I just kept running the pitch, running it back, just keep doing it. We were even practicing walking down the aisle in the stupid floaty thing, and it was like the music was on, the dun 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 dun, the whole Shark Tank theme. But it was, I think, by being so, like, having it so stuck in my head where I almost couldn't even sleep because I just kept thinking of the pitch, like that that was the preparation. And then to actually go do it, you're like, okay, just, this, you've done it a million times, you got this, do it. And then in the middle, not try to get tripped up on like how their reactions are. Like when you're doing something, they laugh, or are they laughing at me, or are they laughing with me? I don't know. It's like all happening in real time, and it's so gnarly. It was the most intense thing. But
Did you find you had trouble balancing the business with getting prepared because you were going to such great, I mean, as most entrepreneurs do, such great
yeah,
lengths to make it as good as you can?
definitely. And yes and no. So part of how this business has been built so far, it's been get to the perfect product. Now I have the perfect product. It's time to go into retail, and that's going to open up a whole another can of worms. But over years of getting it set up on e-commerce and getting it set up there, a lot of it is pretty automated, but not like you have to be involved, but it's not as like, it's not the 12-hour days that I used to, 12, 14-hour days every day to get it to that point. And then once it was there, it was actually a good time for me to be able to focus on this Shark Tank stuff. Yes, it was a juggle. And obviously, being a business owner, you find yourself a lot of times just putting out fires. And that's a job in itself, just putting out fires. So there was definitely still plenty of fires to be putting out, especially when this cash flow thing became a problem. So then it turned into, I got to figure out how to keep things running while still doing the Shark Tank thing. But I'd say, looking back, as an entrepreneur, you don't really think about the relaxing time so much. You just kind of go. And I think, looking back on it, I just knew I had to do this, but I also had to keep everything else alive. Was it a struggle to keep it going? I can't say that it was, because I was already used to everything just all the time anyways. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's I mean, I look back at like the times where I was struggling out of like leaving my family's business and trying to like figure out what I was going to do to make ends meet. And each month it was like something different. You know, the universe always provided. It just you had to be
Right.
listening and you had to be in the right frame of mind and all that
Yep.
to make it work. And if you ask me now, I'm like, yeah, I don't know how that worked out. Like it just
It
like
does.
hand to mouth. Like every time that I needed another client or I needed something, another cash opportunity to come through the door, the universe provided some
Yeah.
opportunity. I mean, the prepared or the luckiest or whatever that quote is, right? Because you're constantly in it, you're constantly networking, you're constantly doing
Yeah.
the things you need to do, and then you're there. So it's like, oh, it's just luckily happened, at the
Yeah.
right time, at the right place, all the
It's
time.
not luck. You made that luck happen. Yeah, it's not luck. You made the luck happen because you were on it.
Exactly.
And yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you sit around and wait for something to happen, even if you're chasing opportunities that are going to be a dead end and you know it's going to be a dead end, just if you have nothing better to do at that moment, sometimes it leads to something else. And I've even found that a lot of times.
Oh
You got to
yeah.
take the opportunity, any opportunity you see, yeah, I think that's kind of what if you're doing your own startup and it's just you don't have a team, you don't have funding, you're bootstrapping everything. That's your only, that's your, what do you say? Your only asset really is just that you're gonna crush to make things work.
Yeah, I mean, really, it is like time. Time is your money, right? And because the
Yeah,
time is money, but really, like then that is what you have. So you invest the time to learn, to do, to get to where
yeah,
you want it to be, and so it's not easy. It's definitely not easy, and not always explainable after the fact because you're
right,
just
exactly.
so in it, like things are whizzing by you, but.
Yep.
Speaking of whizzing by you, time must have just probably did time fly by or did time crawl by the time you got to the right before walking down the hallway?
Oh, it was a crawl. I was in the trailer. I was the last to shoot of the day. I didn't know that. I was there early in the morning, and I was the last to shoot of the day. It wasn't. It was like dark out by the time I actually shot. So it was a crawl, and the entire day was just me mentally preparing. Like I was just in full, like good vibes mode in my head. I just had to like keep repeating, positive things. And I know it sounds silly, but it's kind of true. When you're in a, a pretty intense, you know it's going to get hot in there. You know that it's going to be intense, especially when I open the kimono and show everything that's going on with my business and having those insecurities. It was like I just got to be in a good mindset. But it was definitely a crawl. Yeah.
So you're walking down the hall. Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling excited? What's going on in your mind at that point?
I think at that point I was so pumped that I even got that far. I was just on cloud nine. It was actually a really positive experience, and I had the live mic, and I'm standing there in my flippers, and I got my thing on, and the mic is live. All the producers set you up, ready to go in, and everything. And I go into the mic. I'm like, let's make some damn good TV. I said it like that to like get everyone going, and I hear some laughter in the back. They're like, all right, cool, let's do this, and then off you go. Those doors open, and it was like almost like blacked out. It's like so intense. You're like, I'm here, I'm doing it, and then you stand there, and I had that moment. They make you pause to have your moment
Yeah.
to like get adjusted. So I stand there, I pause, and I did this like, and then had the whole like ready for my pitch thing and kind of like a coy look, and it was yeah. At that point, it was just game on. It's almost like looking back on it, I kind of blacked out at that point. I'm like, you're here, you're doing it, and here we go.
Well, and that's not surprising, right? Like I've said this before on the show where I have a really great long-term memory, but like when I play hockey, and when I would play hockey, people would be like talking about the game after the fact, and they'd be like, "Well, this play and this," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I don't remember any of that." Like
Yeah, you're
it
so
was a
focused
game.
on what you're doing in the moment, and I definitely standing there getting ready to go in. I took that moment in. Definitely, I definitely took that moment in. even going to the studio, I had a moment where I kind of like teared up, man. It was like, this is crazy. Like, just how intense this business has been for so long, and so many wins, and oh, you're crushing, it's doing amazing, and like, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's not, and then turn this way and turn that way. It's just the story every entrepreneur pretty much has is like, it's never like an easy, steady line, especially not when you're bootstrapping it and you're making it happen. But
and
yeah,
and
it's
and
wild.
creating a product that didn't exist before that, right? I mean, there
Yeah,
was similar type things, but not really. And you created it, like you created it. So, it there's it's yeah, it's so not straightforward at all.
yeah.
As far as like
The,
success, what step one, like have ideas, step two, make product, step three, profit. like,
yeah,
like
right.
yeah, okay, sure.
It, I'm so glad I was so naive when I started this business. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have done it. Like, if you really think that just making a cool product, like you said, making a product on its own is a hard thing to do. And then you got to make the website, you got to make the content, you got to make the ads, you got to figure out who your customer is, and then it's all cash flow and it's taxes and it's shipping, and it's just insane, all the different things. But you just do little baby steps one at a time, and you just persistent, stay persistent, and eventually it could all go up in flames. And at least you tried and you learned a hell of a lot along the way, or it becomes something successful. And I think in this case, luckily, I think the product was strong enough that it really worked.
Yeah, it did. I mean, there's and so many things have to go right? Like
Yeah,
your shipping container doesn't get lost or end up in the ocean. Like, like a thing
yeah,
happened, and sorry, boss, we lost like 3 containers, and oh, it happened to be one of them happened to be Hans's full of tentacles that now is at the bottom of the ocean. Like,
right.
things
Yeah,
happen. I mean, even before I did the interview here with Leela Shams on her TA3 swimsuits. She was literally
yeah,
dealing with like product that ended up flooded out. So right before, like earlier that day, and she's like, "This is the kind of stuff that I don't
yeah.
like to deal with," but it's the stuff you just don't know it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's yeah, and it gets messy. So you're there to make great TV, which is, I mean, I'm sure they loved hearing that. I'm surprised that didn't make it into the into like the like before you walk down the
Right.
hallway. Um, and you have a moment where you tell Robert something, and I personally I didn't think his deal was that great either. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like it was a very, I want to say, like, if he's really desperate, then here's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say to be ungrateful or anything, but just it felt like, okay, this is a way, maybe not the best way. If it's the only way, then maybe it's the way. But
Mm-hmm.
and for you to
Yeah.
make great TV, I'll leave you to it.
Yeah. So I think the moment that you're talking about is when he offered uh, essentially to pay off all the debt and to give us a new baseline to refound the company in a sense with a new equity push. And in return, I would lose 40% or 60% of the business. He would own 60%, and he would have a CEO come in and run it. And in a lot, if I was earlier on in the business, I think, or if you really look at the mechanics of how that deal would work, it's not a terrible deal, because if you're looking at, okay, what am I going to use my time for? What am I doing this business for? Is it to make money, or is it to follow some sort of pursuit of some dream that you have? What is the actual reason of the business? And for me, fundamentally, it wasn't about just making money, and it's a good deal to do that, because you have someone else do it, and I can go and get a job somewhere, and now they're doing great. That's awesome, and I get a check every quarter or whatever that is. It's the mechanics of it isn't a bad deal, but I'm not here to do that. I'm here to uh, explore my creativity and make new products and do all these things and learn and make mistakes. Like part of, it's not the end goal, it's the journey. I think if I was in a different position headspace wise, that wouldn't have been a bad offer. But it wasn't the best offer because ultimately you're going to lose a good chunk of the equity in the business. But if he really thought by bringing a CEO in that they could do a really good job, then yeah, maybe. But and here's kind of the crazy part of being in the tank. You make these decisions on the fly. You really do look at what you're doing right then and there on the fly. And to me, it didn't tell my story of who I want to be as an entrepreneur the right way. It kind of seemed like a cop out. And you're right. It sounds like if this is the only option, maybe it's the option to take. But ultimately, it was not I was out, as if you recall, I say, and for those reasons, I'm out. And I think it was more of a personal thing for me. Like, what does this business really mean to me? And it, like I said in the tank, it would break my heart to lose that much equity at this point. I think, and I'm glad I didn't take that deal, and I appreciate his deal. But I think it was best that I didn't take it, and I'm glad it worked out that way.
I also think that. So what I wrote down in my notes was Robert 270,000. Then I also wrote 100,000, and then 60%, and then a slash, and then 478K. So I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't.
So that
was
would
that
be
to,
the
that was to
total
erase
offer.
the debt.
It would be the debt at the time was 270, which I can update you on the debt now, which is phenomenally better than that. So
yeah,
happy to report back.
Let's save that at the end. We'll save that for the
All right.
end.
Yeah. Okay. So at the time, 270K in debt, and a lot of this was vendor debt of things that needed to get paid. When cash flow went south, my ability to pay back vendors went south, and then some of it was actually a good chunk of it, which they didn't keep in the actual episode, was COVID loan, EIDL money. So that's a good chunk of that debt, and it's not forgiven. It's not a PPP loan. It's actually a 30-year fixed loan. So, and I did say that the everything was serviceable. The debt was as high as it was on a number basis of the total. It was actually really serviceable because it had super low APRs on everything. Like, it sucks to be in that position, but at the same time, I wasn't an absolute idiot about it. I wasn't taking on credit card debt with 20% interest or anything like that. It was actually stuff to help build the business, and then the EIDL loan really helped, and it helped us buy inventory and all that. And so it was really low payment debt. At the time, it was about $3,000 a month total was the cost. And what Robert said was, that's not that bad, but it is when you only have $39 in the bank, which we'll get to in a second, that $39 in the bank. But he's right. But really, if you looked at what our monthly income was prior to things going south, it was like nothing. Just keep paying the debt as you go. And so that was kind of, yeah. So we'll update once we get to the end on where that stuff is now.
Yeah, definitely. So it was what he'd give you the 270 to pay down the debt, and then 100,000 for 60%, and then until he got back, he wanted 478,000. Was that what that's? Maybe I wrote that slash for. Because I thought it was a royalty deal that he was looking for.
Number. No, it was the all-in number. He would essentially put all in about 470,000 and take 60%. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's you know what the thing about that is that stands out to me is it sounds like an opportunity, but the at the end of the day, like that, even if he didn't say it, I would venture to think that would be predicated on him finding the right CEO that he wanted to install there, and if he couldn't, he probably would just back out of it because he ain't gonna run it, and maybe, I mean, unless he paid you to be the CEO, but clearly he didn't think enough of what you were doing to want you to still be at the helm. So You know,
which in
and
some
that's just
ways
being
was
real
kind of
about
an
it, right?
insult.
Like, we love you, Robert. Like, I would love to
Yeah.
have you come on the show, but like being real about it, like, I don't think it's was to insult. I just think it's like, well, here's what I can do based on the numbers and the situation to get you
Right.
something. But again, I think that if he couldn't find the right CEO, I think it would be one of those deals that fell between the cracks and didn't, you know, follow through.
Right. And no, I wasn't thinking about that part.
No.
I will say, you know, I was taking everything at face value what they're saying. I wasn't really thinking if you know, if the deal never went through or whatnot. I was really just thinking right then and there in the moment, like, do I want to not run my company and let somebody else do it? No, I'm not ready to do that yet. And that's really from the heart. That's where it was, and
Yeah.
it could be a good offer. You know, like I said before, it's not a bad offer. You sit there and collect a paycheck from disbursements, but it just didn't feel right for me yet.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, and you have every right to feel that way. And I honestly,
Yeah.
I probably would, with the amount of years that you put in to get to where you're at, unless I was exhausted of that journey, like, and being like, yeah, I'm here to help get this thing done, and like, yeah, I'll sell the whole thing. Like, I'm open to that conversation because like I'm exhausted, not because I'm tired of the product necessarily, not because I'm tired of the
Mm-hmm.
community, but just because of the journey has worn me
Right.
down to a point where like, yeah, I could see doing that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
everything's for sale at the right place. At
Everything.
least your loan, you know, at least it wasn't from like Bruno's break your legs. You know, we loan you money down the street.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I got a
No.
guy
Yeah.
if you need that.
Don't
but
get that guy.
but you don't
You,
want that guy.
you
You
don't
don't
want
want
that
that guy.
guy. Kevin O'Leary's that guy. What was when
Oh man.
do you remember the rest in that episode when Damon was talking about, oh, I got offers for loans from loan sharks and people like Kevin O'Leary. I thought that was hilarious. Kevin's yeah.
I mean, I would again, Kevin, Robert. I'd love to have you both here. But I actually, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Kevin, what he was able to do and still does to this day, and his honesty, like his brutal honesty.
It's important. I think what he does. I think a lot of people look at him as, I mean, he has this notoriety of being the aggressive shark. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But honestly, he's incredibly. I watch all his content. He's super smart, and money is binary. And that's a big thing that I learned this last year. Is money is binary, and he says that a lot. And you know, if you don't like it, then get out. Like, you know, he's not wrong.
No.
Yeah.
No, and numbers do not lie, and you know. But I also think that he is sometimes a small. I actually think, and if he comes on this show, which could happen at some point here, just, you know, hint, wink, wink. You know, I would let him know that I because I have some serious questions, because I feel like there's some deals where, yeah, again, we don't get to see a whole everything that was said, so there might be things outside the colored outside the lines there, but I feel like there's like missed opportunities, because I feel like there's a lot of pitches that come through that I'm like, you have the wedding, you know, Mr. Wonderful's wedding the whole thing, right? And if you have that, then that means you have at least some of the people that are on that email list, right? That magical email list are women, right? Of a certain age that are going to either about to get married, will get married, or just recently married. And what comes after marriage? Probably kids in a good chunk of those situations. And there's a lot of baby products. I feel like I've slipped through his fingers. Like, all you had to do was just like segment your list and send out an email, and you probably would have made whatever money you needed back just from that alone.
Right. No, that's a good point.
You know, maybe he's not hiring the smartest guy in the. Well, he does in the wedding side, but again, those people get after you get married, you get kids. You know, at least 50%, 60% of those people are gonna likely or thinking about it. You know, that kind of thing, but. That's a different story for a different day. Hopefully I'll get to bring that up to him at some point. So let's get to Damon. Now, Damon talked about your honesty in the tank about the situation that you were in. And that was really touching for Damon to say, because he doesn't always
Hmm.
err on that side. A lot of times it seems like he'll be like, "Yeah, I'm not smelling." Now, again, we don't see the whole pitch; it's dialed down to
Right.
8 minutes from
Yeah.
an hour or whatever. But he seems to err on the side of like, "Yeah, I'm things don't add up. I'm not really buying it." And sometimes the storytelling and the editing doesn't always set that. But in your
Right.
case, he bought it. He was in.
Yeah.
He was like, I love this. So I would love for you to talk about uh getting to that place to be able to say things that you said on the show, and what you felt that Damon had to say about it, or how you felt that we said about it.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I guess the overall biggest part of David being able to kind of open up about his story, I didn't actually know that. I didn't really know his story on that level. And, it's so interesting. I actually had a target on Damon going into it because I just felt like he was the right partner because of what he's done in the past. And he just seems like an amazing guy to work with. And they all would be incredible to work with, any one of them. But I really did have a target on Damon's back as far as being a partner. I really did want him. And then there's some other products I'm actually working on now that are kind of in the licensing world too. And I felt like he would be really strategic on that end too. Um, but I didn't know that about his story. And it was such a cool moment for him to open up about, him being in a similar position at one point in his life. And he had accounts receivables that weren't coming in. And it's just a cash flow problem that so many people face. And he shared about how he got over it and through it. And I think for me, it was really validating to hear that. Like as an entrepreneur, you just think you don't really think of the sacrifices and the struggles that people who've really made it, what they've been through. And for me, just personally, it taught me. I think the Shark Tank experience was so much bigger than just for me than a typical Shark Tank thing because it really taught me some life lessons. It taught me this, being open and vulnerable about your situation, being honest 100%. Don't, I didn't want them to go down the due diligence process and find all these red flags that, just be straightforward with people. And I think that goes a long way. And even Kevin O'Leary's reaction, Mr. Wonderful, about he even said I could tell you're a good guy, even though he didn't make an offer. He said, I could tell you're a good guy. You came here and you bared it all. And I think that was in some sense refreshing for the Sharks because so many people go in, play the cool guy and say that they got everything together when in reality, maybe their business isn't is in such a rough position as mine was at the time, but they're not sharing the hard parts. And for Damon to open up on his level of his experience in a very similar position, I think it was like we just kind of like walked in. I felt like I even said that like we're having a moment right here once we're going back and forth after hearing his testimony on that. And it really is something that so much of the entrepreneur world is. You hear so much success in what people are doing here and there. You don't really talk about the hard, gnarly crap that it comes along with being an entrepreneur. And I think it was really eye opening. I'm hoping it was eye opening for everyone watching the show and seeing that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be open about how hard things can be sometimes. As long as it's not like, oh, pity me, I tried to do this, tried to do that. I didn't come in with this like pity attitude. I came in like, let's be real. Things are kind of gnarly right now, but I got some plans. Here's where I'm going to go with this business. Here's my vision for this company, and at least having that confidence, I think that kind of helped instead of it being like a pity thing of like, oh no, he's not doing great. Like it actually like was more of a okay, he's gone through the ringer and he's learned some lessons, and I think uh, I think that was kind of maybe why it went well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's easy for us to dismiss people who are successful, the struggles that they had to go through. I mean, look, there's plenty of examples of people that are like, oh, you just gotta work hard, and it's like, well, they're a trust fund
Yeah.
kid. They were a trust fund
Right,
kid growing
right,
up,
right.
and kind of like paint with that brush over other people who
Yeah.
weren't, and like literally came from the very much opposite of that background, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to remember, like, was that the story where about his mom put in the
Yeah.
article in the newspaper? So I remembered that. I couldn't remember if it was your pitch or somebody else's pitch that story
Yeah.
came up, and that was so, it's so funny that he told that story because, how many times do we like, do the same thing, like, oh, mom, like, oh, dad, we don't. That's not gonna work. Like, you don't, things don't work like that anymore. Like, that would have worked like 30 years ago, and it's like, no, it worked. And to share that, look, it wasn't all success calls that came from that, but he got calls, and he got the 1 out of 30 that he had to take, or 33 or something like that he had to take to, all of a sudden become a life-changing moment for him.
Mm-hmm.
So and listen to your elders. That's the lessons from that. But and then the other side of dismissing. So we hear it in the comments from time to time, and I very much try to battle it. Is every time somebody cries on the show, people want to like jump down their like, no, I'm never gonna buy from that company. That person is, they're just doing it for the view and for the views and blah blah blah. And it's like,
yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, like my question to those people is like, so life is just super easy for you? Like everything has just you've just taken it and absorbed it and like come through, because that doesn't sound that healthy either, honestly. But
there's definitely a level of stoicism you have to have in going through some sacrifice, I guess, for your business. You got to just own it, and it's got to be, hey, this is the way. This is how I'm going to do this to make it work. I didn't cry, so that was good. And not that I even had the feeling to do that. To me, it was. I knew I was going to go in there and just let it rip, let it all be open and honest. And that day, I had plenty of cash in the bank before going on there. It was literally that morning I got all these alerts from my bank. The morning I woke up to go to the studio, I see that I had $39 in the account, and I just got hit with all these things at once. And it was like receivables weren't coming in. It was probably one of the most stressful things ever. And for it to happen on that day, exactly on that day, it almost seemed like the universe, God, I don't know, but
universe speaking in your ear,
Yeah, it was like, you know what? This is part of your story. This is part of the journey. It happened today. I didn't even tell any of the producers that happened. I was just like, I'm going to keep this in my mind. I'm going to go out there and make good TV, and I'm going to be clear and open about everything. And I ended up using it to kind of work in my favor in a sense. I think it could have gone both ways. I was so incredibly nervous that I was just going to get eaten alive. I really thought I was going to get yelled out of there, taken advantage of, whatever it might be. But I felt as though, if anything, it would be some sort of like relatability with my customer base, that, hey, here's this guy, he's trying to do this thing, and things kind of went a little gnarly, and at this point he's got enough to get home, and that's about it. But yeah, it was incredibly stressful to go in there knowing that I had cash coming in too. I did know that there was some more receivables coming in, but that day it was like, oh man, are you kidding me? I'm gonna do this? Go stand in front of billionaires, like my literal heroes. I was like, I'm gonna get totally eaten alive. But I think the vulnerability was important, of being open and honest and owning it and not being afraid of it. And then also kind of just knowing that, hey, it's all part of the journey. It's like, it's okay. You've learned a lot. You made some mistakes, and you didn't react in time to a lot of things happening with all the COVID stuff. And I think that there was almost a sense of like, I was almost okay with it. Like, however this goes, I'm going to be fine. It's all going to work out. And I just think that it was one of those moments where it was a bit refreshing to have, like, hey, things have gone really well. I showed my sales numbers, 1.4 million in total sales before that, and yeah, and now it's a lot higher than that even. But I think it was just being open, real, and honest, and raw, and vulnerable. I ended up working and working in my favor.
I think a piece of what you said there, it's all part of the story, right? It'll make for a
Yeah,
great story later. And if you haven't gone through that trouble, like even as when we had the truck parts company, I mean, we had I don't know, 1.5, $2 million on the street in receivables out there, and that
yeah,
it's scary because when a 100 grand or 200 grand is tied up from one customer, if that customer's like literally like they might go if they don't get the contracts for like the state contracts that they should get, but things are all tied up, then the money can't come in, and guess what, we're gonna be in like serious trouble here because the money's not
yeah,
coming in and we got vendors to pay too. Like
yeah.
it's the part of the crazy economy that like
It's
the
crazy.
money's got to go around and around.
Yeah,
um and yeah, I mean, to me, honesty is always the best policy, right? Just being
right.
honest, and everything. I believe everything happens for a reason. Having
Yeah,
$39 that day, look, that I think that probably spoke. Well, obviously, it spoke to Damon, right? It brought
yeah.
right in. Like I've been in that where I've been, back and get literally against the wall, and things are
Hmm.
about to fall like very much apart. And we have to do something to make that happen. Um, so you get the deal with Damon. I mean, he didn't budge down to 25%. Did that
No,
was that process longer than it actually? I mean, I would imagine it probably was a little longer than what they showed on TV.
yeah, I don't remember it being that long of a process. Ultimately, to have Damon even give me an offer, I was stoked. I was like, "You're the guy I wanted. Let's do this. We're gonna make this work." But obviously, it's Shark Tank, so I'm gonna try and throw you back another offer and see if I can, finagle my way into a little bit more equity. But ultimately, he was right at my top line of what I was willing to give up. He was right there on the money, and I thought, I could try and get him to put more in and do all that. But I had this feeling because I just knew that he was the right partner, and so far he really is. We'll get into that, but I just knew that it was going to work out, and it was one of those moments where trust your judgment, trust your gut. Look, you came out here, you did great pitching the product. They all love the product. That was great. You had some good moments of some funny time with Robert and then Mr. Wonderful doing the "I love you, Mr. Wonderful." He said some nice things. Like at the worst comes that you're gonna lose a little bit more equity than you wanted to. So be it. But I still have control of my company, and it was a really good deal. And ultimately, I'm so stoked that I took it. Like it was the right move, and considering where things were at with the business and everything, yeah, it was the right move.
Yeah, absolutely. I always go debate that back and forth, like in the show, with the show of like, well, giving up a little extra. They always say like was it the seed of the watermelon or the whatever the watermelon? I'd rather
Yeah.
have a piece of watermelon than a piece of a grape, or the whole grape or whatever it is. And assuming that it's not like what Robert offered, where you're losing 60% of control of the company and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be able to, if five, valuation almost kind of starts to go out the window at a certain point where it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm having an opportunity to like work with somebody who can like
Mm-hmm.
literally change my life, right? So is that worth
That's
an
how I
extra
felt.
5%? Is that worth 10%? 15%, depending on where the valuation already is, what the money is for, where you're projecting to go, like all those things play into
Mm-hmm.
into it. You're at the end of the day, you get to have those conversations with Damon and Damon's team that
Mm-hmm.
most people don't get to have, right? And it's
Right.
almost like a
Right.
huge leg up. So yeah, I mean, does it suck to give away a little more here or get a little less money or whatever? I would say the only time, and I would actually argue, because there's been people in the comments that have said this, like, oh, a down round is the end of the world. It doesn't matter if it's on Shark Tank. Yeah, but the whole point of being on Shark Tank is to make the sales go brrr.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's the whole
exactly.
point. Like,
Yeah,
so the evaluation, as Mark has said many times, doesn't really matter all that much in
no,
a lot of cases, because the whole point of being there is to sell, so that you can say,
right.
well, we were worth $10 million, and now we're worth, $25 million. So even though our last round was at $15 million, I came down to 10 to meet the Sharks, or I was at 10, I came down to like 7 or 6 or 7 to meet with the Sharks. Now we're worth like 10, 15, 20, 25 million just a year later, because we
Right.
went brr with the sales.
Exactly. If you really look at what a business is a business just an evaluation? Like, if you're not really
No.
providing a good or a service, what good are you doing? So to me, it was, I don't
Ding
care
ding.
about really my evaluation. I don't care if it, if it's $100,000 valuation now, but it's netting, however many million a year, then great. But I think that that's one thing that entrepreneurs, they get so caught up in valuations and different rounds and all that stuff, which, I'm not going to say I'm the smartest guy on that, because I've just
Me,
done
me
everything
neither.
on my own. Yeah, I'm really not. But at the same time, I just feel like if you get so caught up in these different rounds and all that, then really that's what you're doing. If your plan is to go public, if you're a tech company, yes, that makes sense. But I'm a consumer goods product that just needed to see the light of day, and I think that was more where my head was at, and I knew that getting to getting in a partnership with Damon, who's really an active investor. He really is. I felt like there's going to be so much more value in that than getting hung up on a valuation number, because who cares at that point? Kind of, who cares?
Yeah, because you want it to go up, and the whole goal is for it to go up. It's not for we gave you this money, now it goes to the graveyard. The money's going to the
Right.
graveyard. Like, that's not the goal. So,
Right.
but yeah, and I get the tech industry thing, because of the scalability of tech. It makes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense, and if you're constantly going back to the watering hole, and that's some businesses are designed to do that, and just constantly,
Mm-hmm.
you just constantly have to ingest cash in order to keep it going until it gets to a certain point, and you have enough people that get behind that idea. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
More power to you. But in the case of goods and services, there's a give and take there, and if you're not,
Mm-hmm.
like, well, that's not even, I can't even say that, because goods can be, when you talk about molds, and you talk about getting shelf space in a shopping store, it could be really tough. So there is other cases, but again, the goal is to get the sales, so that everything
Yeah.
goes, rising tides lifts all boats, or whatever.
Yeah, and there's other ways to acquire capital needed beyond just selling equity and going
And
through
having a
different
billionaire in your
funding
pocket
rounds.
is kind of a easy way to
That kind
customer
of
to
helps.
yeah, exactly. Well,
Exactly.
exactly.
We even had conversations about funding POs, and he's like, "You don't need to worry about that anymore. We got this." So it's just, once you have a good partner, that's what we worry about. Yeah.
Amen to that. So we
Yep.
get the partner, you get the deal, 80s movie, hooray, at the end.
Yeah.
We're walking out, you head home. What's going on with the company? How's things going since then?
Yeah. So, well, I'll give you the right after airing like that. So actually, what Shark Tank, what they do is they give you a shrink at the
Mm-hmm.
end. Every
Yep.
single pitch gets a psychologist to sit down with you, and I was so exhausted at the end of it. It's like, just kind of lay there. You don't think about how intense it is. You're just talking. It's not that gnarly, but your brain just goes through so much. I was pretty tired at the end. And then spoke with him a bunch and kind of was like recapping and call my mom, talk to my wife and everything, and recapping how everything went. And there was a few funny that part where I said I'm out, back to Robert. The whole crew in the back was busting up laughing. I can hear them, all the producers, everyone laughing in the background. So there was a big high out of the whole experience just on, how fun it was, and how I got the deal and all that stuff. So that was pretty wild. And then immediately after, within that week, I, or no, beyond the week, it was the week after, I got COVID, and
Oh.
we were still in the RV, and I ended up getting it pretty bad. Uh, I had to go to the hospital. I didn't end up getting admitted or anything. They ended up sending me home, but it was one of those things like everything's all crazy and all good and everything's amazing and ready for the next steps. Are we going to air? What's going to happen? All that stuff. And then boom, just sideswiped. My wife and I both got it. Actually, I got it pretty bad. Hers wasn't as severe as mine, but it's just one of those things. And it so had it. We're still in the RV. It's middle of August, like 110-degree weather, and we're quarantined to like 45 square feet of space in this RV, and it's sweltering hot outside. You can't do anything. You got to stay in there with the AC on and just trying to recover from this thing that has affected so many people. And it was like, oh man, this is a wild year. And yeah, and from that point, it was like I'm like working from bed because I can't barely move, and it just added to the whole experience. We'll just say that it just added to this emotional turmoil of a year, and I was able to lock in some really good deals during that time, getting our sales up, so it ended up being really productive of a month, even though I was pretty much out for almost a month, but I still got stuff done. And this was waiting in time from because you don't air right away. They have to produce the show and everything. So it was a few months. I mean, I think I filmed in July, I believe, and then ended up. Yeah,
It
so
aired
it was
just
like
it only aired like a month
December.
ago. Yeah, yeah, December. Month and a half
So
ago.
yeah, it was about 4 or 5 months of waiting. But I'm like, I'm not going to sit and wait for good things to happen. I got to still run my business and everything. So I was able to pay off a ton of debt, even before airing, and then get a few really good wholesale deals. I was finally starting to get some wholesale stuff. So I was like, I'm in crush mode. I got to make this stuff happen, regardless of what happens with this. And then obviously we're working through the deal. They're doing their due diligence, making sure I'm not a total schmuck. But luckily I shared all the red flags before we even got into the due diligence, so that was good. And yeah, during that whole time, it was just go go go, but also you have COVID, so it was gnarly.
Oh man, that
Yeah.
is so. I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, I'm
Because
good.
did you get
Yeah,
COVID brain as well? Like,
yeah, the brain fog.
forgetful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had that. I think they're calling it long COVID. So it ended up for me the symptoms. Even now, every now and then, I'll just get like a wave of exhaustion out of nowhere that I never used to have before. So I think these effects are gnarly. Just get vaccinated, please. It's gnarly, and I wasn't vaccinated either at the time.
No.
So
Oh wow.
it's my fault. But yeah, it was one of those things. It was like there's so much going on. I need to go do this. I should get vaccinated, but I'm in the middle of nowhere. Who am I going to get anything from? And it wasn't until after all. Yeah, so it was. You can still get it even if you're in the middle of nowhere.
Well, yeah. Well, it's also worrying about the side effects at the time. Like I know
Yeah.
when we did it, I got vaccinated like a week away from my wife because God forbid one of us had a a
Right.
really bad side effect from it. Like that affects our kids.
Yeah. What's your
Trying who's going
concern?
to take care of the kids, and my wife actually every time she's gotten a shot has had way worse symptoms of it than I have. Where I'm like tired, but not tired the first day, not tired the second day. It's not until like the third day that I'm just like exhausted after each one of them. Where my wife actually was she had like really bad headaches and things, like the mild symptoms of it from it. But yeah, so it's those are the types of things like when you have kids, you got to like think about those things. You can't both get sick at the same time. Like
Totally. Yeah, that was a
So
concern too because I was just so busy with trying to get everything done, and I mean, even just setting up, you have to do all the stuff for the pitch yourself, like all the set, everything. You got to go get stuff printed. You got to, and you got to sign release forms for everything in it. So all my friends, I had, if you look in the background, one of my buddies is in one of the shots, and he has sleeve tattoos. I had to go get all his tattoo artists to sign off a release that they could have their artwork shown on TV. It was like insane the amount of like craziness you got to go through to get it done. And so I was like, all right, I'll get vaccinated next week. I'll get vaccinated, just thinking about it. And then I just never did. And then boom, afterwards I got it. So, now I'm nature vax.
Yeah. Well, so I'm glad you didn't have worse symptoms of it. You and your wife, and we're able to get through it. But yeah, I mean, I totally sympathize with that. Like that wouldn't be, with all the things going on, that wouldn't be the top of my list either. You know. It just wouldn't come and then on top of that thinking like, well, if I get sick too, then that's a problem as well, like or not sick but have the symptoms from that, setbacks from that. So so the debt, so where are we at with the debt? You said you paid off a bunch of debt, which is, well, by the way, ding ding for getting the work. And because like that's something where I'm sure Damon was looking, his team was looking into that, like did he go home and just like rest on his laurels and do nothing, like
yeah, no, I was in grind mode. Yeah. I appreciate, ding ding. So I paid off half the debt, and then the other half is, so the other half is essentially, it's such low payments that I would rather use that capital to grow the business further at this point.
Is that the EIDL loan?
Yeah, it's EIDL.
Oh, yeah.
Most of that is that one, and then there's one other loan that we've had for a while, and the payments are so low. It's kind of like, all right, I can pay this off, but then you run into another cash flow problem. You kind of need cash is king right now. So I think the APR was like, okay, so the EIDL loan is a 30-year loan, and the payment's like $400 a month or something on like over $100,000 or whatever. So it's like, what, it's not really, you can pay over $100,000 right now and then wipe that, or you can just focus on growing the business. And that was where I was at. It's just let's grow the business more. So we still have a bit more debt to pay, but we have more cash to cover the rest of the debt than we definitely have more than $39 in the account. And our sales, so since filming to basically now, we did over $500,000 in sales during that time. So yeah, pretty stoked.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense on the EIDL loan to not. I mean, you can always pay it down faster. Paying $800 a month instead of $400 is to me would make sense, especially if $400 a month when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in and out is kind of a rounding error. I mean, think about like when I think about things, I think about it in terms of like, okay, how much did the internet cost here? Like, if I'm paying $100, okay, so it's 4 times what I pay for the internet. That's not $4,000 a month, right? That's that 4,000. Like now we're talking about like rent on a pretty sizable like warehouse and office space, right? So things like that, or even just a storefront where you have to pay, between insurance and all the electricity, all the utilities and all that stuff. So, $400 a month is basically nothing to worry about. And if you just paid $500 or $600 or $800 a month, just to throw money at it, you get that 30 down to 15, and before you know it, it's down to 7, and before you know it, it's like we got like 2 years left to go, and not a big deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I love that. Congratulations on all the success with it. That is absolutely awesome. And it's great to see. I assume your community went crazy when when you actually aired on Shark Tank. Did you guys do like a
viewing party?
A viewing party. That's it. It's getting late over here on the East Coast.
I think it's up on our Instagram. It might be on YouTube too, but we filmed it. All friends and family came out to the ranch. We call it the ranch. It's my mom's property out here in Menifee. And we had a projector screen up and threw a big party, and it was so cool. It was, good community vibes. Everyone who's been there throughout the process and cheered me on, and it was fun because I watched it for the first time with everyone. So it was a cool experience to kind of get to have that moment with everybody who's been there. And my wife made a little speech, and my parents made a little speech too. It was kind of cute, and yeah, it was a really cool moment to just at least celebrate, celebrate a win. So that was really cool.
Not many wins get to be celebrated like that. So
Yeah,
I hope you took all that in for the specialness of what occurred. I personally have only been, or I've been to a couple of watch parties because somebody local here was on Master Chef Junior back in season 3, I think it was two
oh
or
wow,
three. Yeah, and he actually made it all the way to the end. Like he came first runner up. He didn't win, um but yeah, so I got to go. They held it at his school because he was in seventh grade at the time. So like
oh,
I got
that's
to
really
know
cool.
everybody at the school, and it was really cool. I went and interviewed like him and got to. It was a whole. It actually it's one of those things where the universe is speaking to you. That
Yeah,
experience like changed a lot of things for me. Just going and being like, hey, like I do a podcast, like in 2014,
yeah,
like let's do the show, right? So yeah,
yeah,
so it's always be looking for those like types of opportunities. But yeah, being at those watch parties is really cool. It's a really cool experience.
yeah.
So I'm glad you got to experience it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was so fun. My the attorney that helped me just kind of guide me in writing my own patent was there. He was like, "Oh, if you can write a paper, you can write a patent. And I'll just tell you what hoops to jump through." And I'm like, "Sweet, thank you." So he showed up, and actually, Pete Hamburg. Shout out to Pete Hamburg from season 6, 5, I think it was. Hamboards. Do you remember the giant skateboard?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
so he
yeah.
was a neighbor of my dad's friend, and we ended up connecting. And he's a super cool guy, and we chatted a bunch. And yeah, so he actually came out to watch it too. So there was a Shark Tank alumni that came out, so that was kind of cool.
I
Yeah,
love that. I remember that. I haven't
yeah,
done it on my channel yet, but I do remember that pitch.
yeah.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Did they go on
Cool.
twice? I feel like they went back.
They did a few follow ups. Yeah, they did
Oh,
the
okay,
update.
okay.
Yep,
I wasn't sure if
yep.
they went back with a second product because I thought
Oh,
they
I don't.
had
I don't know if they did. No, I think that he only pitched once.
only once.
Uh,
Oh, okay.
hmm Yeah,
Maybe
he
I'm
only
thinking of
pitched
somebody
once.
else then. But
Yeah,
I do remember the boards like that, the long boards.
yeah,
Anyway, Hans, before we get to your final thoughts and any last advice you have for super entrepreneurs out there, how can people connect with you? How can people get Tentacle and all that?
yeah. So Tenikle is on pre-order because we sold out of products. Ding, ding, ding. It's on pre-order on our site www.tenikle.com. That's spelled Tenikle.com. So we're on there. We're on Amazon, which is also sold out. So just go to the website to pre-order from there. And yeah, what was the other question? Sorry, it just
Oh
went
no,
into
it's okay. It's
the.
okay. That was the primary
Oh,
the
connecting
primary
with
one.
me.
Yeah, connecting
Yeah,
with you. Oh yeah, yeah.
connect with me. Email me Hans Hans at tentacle.com. Follow us on Instagram at tentacle, and or you can hit me up on personal too, Hans Dose at Hans Dose, and I'm on LinkedIn. So yeah,
Sweet, and you absolutely should, Hans. It's been so great having you here, here on the Super Entrepreneur
thank you. This
Shark
was
Tank
super
Tag
fun.
Tales.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait to watch this and watch a bunch more of your content. I mean, it's such a good format. I
Oh,
love what you're doing. So thank
oh,
you.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I I put a lot of care into the even just not watching the stuff because like I don't know if you knew, you probably didn't know this, but your pitch went live on YouTube before it probably even aired at you. Your watch
Really?
part. Well, because you're on the West Coast, right? You're in California.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I do all the interviews, or I do all the reactions here on the East Coast. So I
Oh,
start
okay.
at like 8:30. So the show isn't even done airing here on the East Coast before the first
Oh,
pitch
yeah.
from the show gets on online. and then I just start rolling from there. And usually
That's so cool.
before 11 o'clock rolls around, I have all the pitches up online.
That's super cool. Yeah, it's because when before it aired here on the West Coast, I had the Shopify up live, and we were just watching. Like all of a sudden, boom, massive traffic spike. I think we had like 100,000 visits at one time, or it was
Wow.
just under 100,000 visits, just all at once. It just lit up like a Christmas tree, and then I was like, "Oh, no one's buying, no one's buying, no one's buying." All of a sudden, ding, 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 the phone's going off and went crazy, and I didn't even realize this, but we sold out on Amazon. I had over $100,000 worth of product on Amazon. We sold out on Amazon before we even finished airing on the West Coast. It just, zoop, it was all gone. It was crazy.
Wow. Ding ding.
Yeah, that's the
That
power of Shark Tank.
You
Yeah.
know what? I was thinking that's probably like the longest couple of seconds, in your life was watching all this come on, and then it's like, is anybody gonna buy? Like it's
Is
like,
it
and
even?
it might have been 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, but it was probably like
Yeah.
the longest,
It
like,
was like, yeah,
um,
about 30, 40 seconds before it started hitting. And I almost started like freaking out. I'm like, oh no, this is not good. People are not buying. And then I'm like kind of freaking out. And then all of a sudden it was just game on. I think we did, uh, within 5 minutes, I think we did over, what was it? We were doing like, uh, 10 grand a minute, over 10 grand a minute. It was like
talk
insane.
about
10,
screwing up your
15 grand a
charts.
minute. I know. And it was really nerve wracking because I'm like, I got to get everything dialed in ahead of time so that, no kerfuffles with the website or, what have you. So it was a lot of prep to make sure that everything would run smoothly. I had like extra backup pixels installed, Facebook pixels, just to make sure we could retarget, like all this stuff. It was definitely kind of crazy. And then when it all happens, it's game on.
And because we've seen that in the past where sites go down because they weren't prepared for the amount of
Yeah,
traffic that they would get from the Shark Tank effect. And
right.
it's yeah, so oh god, that would be horrible for you not to be able to retarget all those people that just went to the site but didn't necessarily buy right then and there.
Yeah.
That would be a huge swing and a
I have a
miss.
bad story about that too. That I was told from Damon's team. I guess someone a long time ago uh, didn't have their website totally dialed in, and they had the viewing party, and they're partying with all their friends and kind of not focused, like to the point where they were kind of blasted, I guess, and they weren't really watching their website. Like, this is your big moment. Make sure everything's working, and didn't get a single sale. Missed it because the website crashed. They were down. Isn't
I
that
feel like
horrible?
I've heard that
Yeah.
story. Maybe it was on a
Yeah.
Beyond the Tank or a Shark Tank update or something. I feel like I've heard that before.
Really? Yeah.
Specifically, I don't remember if it was Damon. I don't remember. I don't recall if it was Damon specifically, but I do that story. I definitely know I've heard that before
Yeah, I
from
don't know if it
somewhere.
was his team or if it was someone that they worked with, but it was a horror story that I had heard that would just be that would be a rough one.
Such an awful opportunity
Yeah,
missed. So
yeah,
it's great that that it's working. It worked and working out for you. I'm so happy
yeah.
for you, and I'm
Thank you,
so happy
man.
that you
Me
were able to
too.
get a deal. And you seem as
Thank
great
you.
as they said in the show. So it's not, or I should be pointing this way.
Yeah.
As she's great as she said, as they said in the show, and so it's great. It's always, well, I always welcome any Shark Tank entrepreneur, whether they had a
Yeah.
good experience or bad experience. Like I just did the Pavlok reaction video today.
Awesome. Yeah.
They're absolutely available. Welcome to come on the show and talk about the product, talk about the Shark Tank experience and why it went wrong and why or why it went right or
Yeah.
whatever. This is how we learn, right? Having
Yeah.
these conversations. So Hans, thank you, Super Hans, thank you so much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed watching this
I have.
Shark Tank tank tails. Oh, it's okay. It's all
I'm
good.
messing this up for you. I'm sorry.
It's all good. We'll fix it. I don't actually edit
Super
these,
Joe.
so it's okay. No, I hope you've enjoyed this video, this interview. We'll see you in one of these two videos right here. Have a great day. Take care and go be super.